when the situation is at its most dire is when most people turn to spirituality. They pray to God.
I really believe that we're all connected, past our physical bodies in terms of the way we think. And we've probably all had this experience where I might be thinking of a friend that I haven't seen for months or years. And I've had this so many times where I'll be thinking of them or they'll be thinking of me. Next minute, I get a text or get a phone call the next day from this person. And it's happened numerous times. I'm sure most of the people listening, whoever's listening, they would have had this kind of experience.
G'day, Shane. How are you going?
Good, bud. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. It's been a while, hey?
Yeah, it's been too long.
All right, let's kick things off. Today we're going to be chatting about spirituality as it particularly pertains to us, to men, boys, guys, however you want to reference this, because it's a thing that you and I both know very well, and we know other guys that have gone down this path, are going down this path, have thought about this path, and some that actually shun the path as well, only for them to turn around and realize that, hey, there might be something in this. So we're going to open up some discussions on this because I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it's something that men should discuss openly. I know that in some closed circles, this does get discussed, but I'm hoping that this could be something that's a bit more regular and a bit more open without having other men present lift that one eyebrow and go, what are you talking about, Willis? So let's talk. So spirituality, for me, it means a lot of things. I think I've mentioned to you in the past, Shane, and I have recorded a video on this as well, is that I'm a default believer in things just working. I don't need to know the specifics behind things or the science behind things to understand why it works. And if it just works for me, great. I'm not looking at trying to break something that's working. It's like if it works the first time, awesome. If it works the second time, great. If it keeps working every time after that, that's it. I'm sold. And sure, it's one of those things that doesn't work 100% of the time, but nothing does, right? But for me, spirituality has been something that works like a high percentage of the time. And even of those times that I thought it didn't work, the longer I leave it and come back to that same situation, I think, yeah, it actually did work at that time. It's just at that point in time, I couldn't see it working. The decision was made that I thought wasn't the right one, but in hindsight, it was perfect.
Yeah.
So for me, specifically, I'm into numerology. I am into law of attraction. I'm into tarot cards. I'm into Reiki. I'm into energy healing. I'm into crystals. I'm into a whole bunch of woo-woo stuff, for a better word, which I think people can understand probably a little bit more clearly in this space. And they've all worked for me. I trust in them. I tell others about them that are willing to listen and that I know are open to conversation. And even those that I don't think are open, I kind of like to drop it to see what their opinion is. And funnily enough, and I think you could attest to this as well, some people that you think wouldn't be open to this stuff are actually pretty open to it. And then you're like, wow, I would never have thought you're into this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I've been into this stuff like all along. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me about it? It's like, because I thought that you didn't like this stuff either. So you have this, you have this passion for something that two people actually share, but they're actually afraid to share it in case they might get shunned. So, in our age, late 40s, early 50s, I think it's a bit more accepted. But what I see now is that some of the younger people, some of the younger kids, half our age, are a little bit more aware of it. Whereas I think when we were growing up, we had more of a religious aspect to things, where spirituality ideally should be kind of linked to that, I think, in a way, because it is a form of belief. When we were growing up, at least from my feeling, it was religion, and then spirituality was like not religion, but believing in something else. And then, in those days, it's like, no, you have to believe in God. That's kind of what we were taught. So I think my spiritual journey started, I'd probably say over a decade ago. Just, classic midlife awakening, midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. And it was just that the thought of like, is this it? Is this all there is to life? Is this what I'm going to be doing? Is what I'm looking at it? Is there something beyond, what I'm actually seeing? And so I tried a bunch of stuff out. I listened to a bunch of podcasts, and some of them crept down that path of spirituality. Some of them was law of attraction stuff. Some of it was manifesting. Some of it was conspiracy theories, which one of the podcasts that I listened to, one of their taglines was conspiracy theories eventually leads to spirituality, which is actually, I think is actually true, because believing in a conspiracy theory is just belief, essentially. And that's what most of spirituality is a belief. It could be a belief in something, in someone, in a particular event, in aliens, in UFOs, in dinosaurs, in everything. It's just a belief. So if you have a conspiracy theory bent, even if it is a little bit, it means that you're willing to entertain the fact that something that I wouldn't say isn't proven, but something that's a bit controversial, you're willing to look at that and go, there might be some truth behind that. If it feels right to me, I might take a look. And so, after listening to all of those sorts of things and doing some own research and trying things out, right? Like there's one thing about having a belief about something. You have to basically try it out to see if it fits. And all of these things that I tried just happened to click together. Reiki was one of those things, and numerology was like a huge surprise for me, and that stuck around, and that's worked for me very well. And crystals, I like that. Tarot has always been around, and on top of that, sharing the passion with other people, and then finding out from their experiences, you should also try this, and kinesiology, and you should try that, and tapping, and just all of these different things have opened my mind. Some things work for me, others don't, but the stuff that I like and that I enjoy, I've pretty much kept with.
Yeah. It's a funny thing, spirituality there. I think the word spirituality even means something different to so many different people, Even I was brought up quite religious in a Catholic family, and it was quite a tight-knit community, and as I was growing up, I think I would have been in my late teens, 17 comes to mind, and I kind of asked the question, why am I here, Now, I believe I was in church at the time when this happened, and I was looking out at the priest and everyone else and thinking, what are we doing here? And obviously he's given a sermon and trying to educate us and have us do something, live in a particular manner, but the interesting thing was everyone seemed not fully involved with what was going on at that time. And I remember thinking, this is one hour out of the whole week. And when we leave here, it's like getting together with friends, and then you have a bit of a social gathering, and then you go back to your lives and do what you did prior to going to church, But I think around that time was when I started really questioning things, and what I've come to with religion and spirituality is religion is something that's taught to you, and beyond that, and it's also encouraged within whatever religion you follow, is to go beyond that, to go in deeper, to connect with God, if you want to call it God or universe or something of a higher power. And so for me, when spirituality kind of opened up, and it was kind of like the gates opened and a flood came in, it was like an opening of the unseen. Now, prior to that happening, I'd already had stories in family of things like ghosts and spirits come in to visit and all of that sort of thing. So that wasn't unusual to me. But having happened to me in real life with people around me after this kind of shift was a different thing. When you start to experience things beyond what you can see, or beyond what you can see in the physical realm, you have to question that, and you could say I'm crazy if you were the only one that saw it, right? Yeah. But it goes beyond that too. And I started to wonder, what do we have beyond our physical realm? And if we're only taught this, what we see, hear, and touch, taste with our physical senses, there's obviously something more to the story that we're not getting, and no one's really teaching this or talking about it. And so people in the spiritual community, this is something that they already know exists, whether they've gone through it themselves or they just sense there's something more to it. So I also went through many of the things that you spoke about, different kind of modalities. I've done Reiki. I've done many different kind of spiritual practices. I've gone into sweat lodges, things like that, trying to get to a place where I can transcend beyond just what I see, feel and touch and hear. And I wanted to know more. I wasn't born with the kind of senses in terms of what a clairvoyant may have, but I've got different senses, and I believe those can be developed as well. And so the journey into the spiritual realm was really, I realized it was this journey about going within. And now for me, spirituality, even though there's so many different types of practices, it comes back to the self. And when I say the self, it's the self prior to the conditioning, conditioned life, And so the more layers I kind of peel back, it comes back to some center of truth for me. And I think that's really where spirituality is. It's a way of living more true to yourself rather than kind of following a planned path for you prior to your birth. And so it's getting back to that original or inherent kind of truth for yourself. That's what it's been for my experience. And a lot of people in the spiritual realm, they talk about this as well, coming back to some sort of truth. And I think really that's where it comes down to, regardless of what kind of spiritual practice you have. However you get there, it's kind of like the same path. You're trying to go inward and kind of put aside all the teachings from elsewhere and kind of get to a place where something feels aligned, So
listening to you now, it actually brought me back to when I was a teenager. I was forced to go to church with my mum, and look, not forced in a bad way. It was still forced. Like we still had to get up and go to church, but I wasn't kicking and screaming. And I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it. It was more so just having to show up. Initially, it was just an excuse to like get all dressed up for like no other reason, just to rock up. And yeah, look, there were other kids there, and I think we were all so young that we didn't really know much about church in general, and even God and Jesus and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't as prevalent as say in America, where that's since the time you're born, that's all you're talked to. Obviously if the family is religious, and so starting to go to church and listening to some of the language that was there, it was so foreign. I found it really dry, and almost it was like I couldn't relate to it. I think my sister and I stopped going when we were about 18, and we were going since we were probably like less than 10. So it was a long time. And sure, they had Sunday school, and we understood the stories and all of that sort of stuff, but it was just something that I found difficult to not so much believe, but just get into. I appreciated the stories and all of that sort of stuff, but the how it affected me at that time in my life was difficult to fathom, because I just wanted to run outside in the sun. Instead, you've got me caught in this room, and you're trying to teach me something that I don't. It's it's a time and place sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now there's different sorts of churches. There's just different ways to deliver a particular message, which I think address a bigger audience. And had I been that age now, going to church now, it might be a different story, I think, because church back in those days, like I said, you dressed up, you went in there, you sat, there was communion, and like I had no idea what was going on, and I found it. Look, I don't want to sound like I didn't want to be there, but it felt like a waste of time, because I would sit there. Sometimes I'd be super bored with my cousins and be like, "What are we doing this for?" Like, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
And it's not until many years, decades after the fact, I was like, okay, there could be something to this. But in listening to you talk as well, I think I've come to the realization that everyone is spiritual in some aspect. Everyone, even if they don't say that they are. I think that we have used the word spirituality and kind of bound it to woo-woo stuff, which I think is a bit more on the extreme side. Because I like to think that everybody, or most people, I don't like to sort of put everything in absolutes, but I think that most people have a belief in something, whether it's a belief in a God, if they're part of a particular faith. It could be just belief in themselves, belief in a system, belief in their family. There has to be a certain amount of energy that you have to put behind something where you don't know what the outcome is, but you are wishing for that outcome to be positive, which I think in itself is a form of spirituality. It's believing that, okay, my sick daughter is going to get well soon. My family is going to stay together through this traumatic event. I will heal as a result of listening to what my friends tell me. There has to be a belief, there has to be a faith somewhere. And that was one of the questions that I would want to ask people that didn't consider themselves spiritual. It's like, so like when the chips are down, like what do you believe in? What do you put your faith in a hope that you'll have a positive outcome? Is it just with the doctors, but you don't really, like, you trust the doctors to know what they're doing, but do you put your faith in them as well, or do you put your faith in something else? It's kind of like when the situation is at its most dire is when most people turn to spirituality. They pray to God. They've never prayed to God before. How many times have you seen in the movies where something bad's about to happen? There's a flood that's going to come in, or there's this big storm, and you cut to the main protagonist, and they're like, "Hey, I'm not normally a religious person, but God, if you're out there, I hope you're listening. Please
Help
save
me.
us."
Yes.
So spirituality, I think, is a word that we have tied to a lot of the woo-woo stuff, which I think is incorrect. I also think it's more of a word that has, I wouldn't say, it's not meaning, but I think is a bit more stigmatized in Western society than say Eastern. I've mentioned this a number of times before, especially as it comes to Australia. Like, we don't really have a religion as such. So we're either looking for one or just grow up and not have one at all, which I think is, one of the reasons why as a country, I think the rest of the world sees us as people that just, it's not like that we don't care, but we say carefree, because
Yeah.
it's like whatever happens, happens. Whereas people that have a bit of faith or that have a bit of spirituality behind them, they seem to have a little bit more control. Whether or not they actually do have control, it doesn't matter for me, but it matters for them. They'll put their faith in whatever it is that they believe in. So, I think that spirituality in itself is something that everyone has. And, kind of one of the reasons why I say that is because I'd love for guys to talk about it more often, for other guys to, use the words like manifest, which are still, I think, a very like female, they're a feminine word. Guys don't say, I manifest a new car. It's, as much as I know you and I actually do that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not something that we kind of say, but I know females they do that all the time, and they don't bat an eyelid. It's even to the point where they suggest it to their friends. I want to go to France, or I want to buy this car, I want to get this job. And it's like, I'm manifesting really hard, to the point where it sounds like they're almost just taking advantage of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd love it if guys were open to that kind of vernacular. It still feels a little bit weird to use it. Even myself, like, even though I fully believe in it 100%. I only feel comfortable talking to people like you about this, because I know that I'm like, hey, I manifested this, or I met with my numerologist and she told me this. I can say that to you and not feel the potential, like, does this guy think that I'm on drugs? Sort of thing.
Yeah. It's funny. I think, because for the most part we've been brought up on this kind of Newtonian kind of way of thinking that, when I do this, this happens, and when you can't make all the building blocks to what some outcome happens, even though you've perhaps thought about it. And I really believe that we're all connected, past our physical bodies in terms of the way we think. And so and we've probably all had this experience where I might be thinking of a friend that I haven't seen for months or years even. And I've had this so many times where I'll be thinking of them, or they'll be thinking of me. Next minute, I get a text or get a phone call the next day from this person, and it's happened numerous times. And I'm sure most of the people listening, whoever's listening, they would have had this kind of experience, right? So the thing is, that's just a thought pattern. The next thing that happens from there is to create it in the physical, right? So either that means someone has created it through their physical, effort, or have you ever had things turn up that you weren't expecting? I've heard so many people talk about, I manifested a coffee today, and it was either someone had paid for this other coffee and not taken it, and they just gave it to the person at the counter or whatever, and these are little small things. And so these are all manifestation. You can call it materialization, whatever you want, but it happens. And I was thinking about something, with we talk about spirituality, you and I, quite a bit, and there's a large community around the world that do. And thank goodness we're at the age that we are, because a couple of 100 years ago, they would have all had us burnt at the stake, right? For even talking about this kind of stuff, witches, warlocks, whatever. But this is just something that has always been around and always been practiced, but had to have been done kind of in an underground way, when we think about it. And these are just, you mentioned, from the East, this is just a way of life back home, as much as it is what we see and hear. The unseen is also a part of the reality that we live in. And these practices that we do and the beliefs, and I suppose there is a large part of belief because you can't touch it, and that's really what it does come down to, doesn't it? I was I was thinking about something as well. You know how you said um, people when they believe they're not religious or they're not spiritual, but when the chips are down, you know, God, if you're out there,
Yep.
you know. And the interesting thing when myself and now my ex-wife at the time, we had to get our kids baptized, and we weren't religious at that time. We were kind of on the cusp of, we knew we were spiritual, but it was kind of like, oh, just in case. And it was also for really to please family, because the last thing we wanted to do was be ostracized by our family and community. So as far as they knew, we were still Catholic, but both of us would openly say we're spiritual. But at that time, we did get our kids baptized because everyone kind of expected it. And but you know, down the road now, you know, 30 years down the track, we would make different kind of we'd do things differently. And the thing was, our kids were never really brought up religious either, even though my mum tried to convert them many times. But, you know, she knew we wouldn't take them to church. So every time she'd look after them on the weekends, they'd be going to church and everything, you know. But it never hurt them. And I think, you know, regardless of whether it's religion or spirituality, I think all of them have a basis of, you know, you take the good stuff from it, you know, treat others the way you want to be treated, you know, all the love components of what's in religion. And you find quite a lot of that in spirituality, you know. A lot of that is based on the way you feel. The practices that you do in spirituality, they really seem to open up your heart quite a lot. And that's a good thing, you know. Especially for men, I think, and the term, I guess, in these days we call it woo woo, and I'll take that any day from being burnt at a stake, you know.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of one of those terms to kind of keep it just at arm's length. So, you know, I'm not woo woo, that kind of thing, but you know, it is what it is. Some people think it's very mysterious, and it's not really that mysterious when you practice it, you know. And those things that are unknown kind of scare us the most, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know why guys don't flock to spirituality as often as they would like to admit. Or, having said that, they probably do. They're just scared to talk about it with other guys. Because, you know, it's a thing for... it's a well-known fact that guys generally keep to themselves, especially if situations aren't looking the best, which is probably everyone all the time. You know, there's either one situation in your life that can be dealt with better. If it's a money thing, if it's a marriage thing, if it's a kids thing or a work thing, there's always things that need to be worked through. And for the most part, guys generally like to keep to themselves. They might talk to some friends about it, but depending on what the actual issue is, or, you know, the situation, even some of the closest friends don't get told about it. So having spirituality is kind of the answer. You know, it's kind of something that is an internal practice, as you mentioned. So if life is looking pretty bad at the moment, it doesn't even need to be bad. It could just be annoying. It could just be a case of where you thought you would be somewhere, but you're not there yet, or you're in the opposite direction. You know, and you don't want to talk to people about it because, as guys, we don't like to. That's fine. You know, keep it inside. Use spirituality. Have a bit of faith in something. Try different modalities out. And what I think happens, or at least what happened to me, was that's how I started because it was more of an internal journey. It was more about finding out more about me. And then through that, I tried a couple of things and they worked. And I'm like, hey, am I the only one that knows about this? Maybe I should tell other people. And then I tell other people and like, yeah, I'm into that as well. Like, wow, like we're all into this stuff. So it was for me, it was for something that I looked for internally, which is what guys really should be doing, is looking inside, which is what they do anyway, right? There's a problem, you don't have enough money. What do? You look internally. Sometimes you don't want to tell your friends that you're struggling financially. You don't want to tell your family because you might have borrowed money from them already. So it just festers inside. So maybe look for an answer inside, whether it be, look, it could be through religion. I'm not saying don't do religion, but at least it's an option. It could be through seeing a clairvoyant. It could be something else. Sometimes it is a similar case of when all of the chips are down, and that could be what it takes. And it could be a case of where someone's in that situation, struggling financially. They can't talk to people about it. They look inner. Okay, I'm going to give this modality or this thing a try. And it just might set them up to be able to weather that situation. Now, spirituality really isn't about fixing problems, at least in my opinion. It's not about fixing problems per se, but it's about allowing yourself to manage that situation to either get to the next place. So get to this place, you're at this place now where everything looks like this. I can't see anything past this. Spirituality gets you to that next place where it's like, okay, well, you're here the next day. Like, what's next? Okay, well, you're the day after that. Okay, so I'm believing in something and it's helping me get to that next step and the next step and the next step, because I've put my faith in this thing, in numerology, in God, in Buddha, in something. And once it gets you through that, you're either stuck with it and you just keep on doing it, or you can drop it, which some people do. And then when something bad comes again, they go back to it. And, it takes a couple of times. It's like you're not, you don't have this one event and all of a sudden, bam, you're spiritual and you believe in this. It takes some practice. It takes a couple of times of going, it only worked the once, it won't happen again. And you might not get the opportunity for years after that until it was like, well, here I am again. Like, what did I do last time? Oh, that's right. I did this. I prayed, or I saw a shaman, or I got a Reiki. I got something, and that helped me through that time. I might have to give that another shot. Do it again. Wow, it works. And it might stick that time. So I almost think that spirituality is the answer to the answer to most guys' problems. Or at least it'll give a level of clarity. It'll give a certain level of comfort, for a better word. It'll kind of bring them present and go, nothing is going to happen now that will cause this thing that I think that might happen. I'm here now. What is it that I can control? Because it just means that I don't have to talk about my problems to some people, which again is another guy trait. We keep everything internal, and then we don't want to talk to anyone about it. So spirituality is almost like the perfect remedy for that, because it's something that, you're right, it is internal, and once you've used it for yourself, fine. It's kind of like your own superpower. And if you want to talk to other people about it, cool, that's fine as well. But then once you sort of do that, you realize that, you've been doing that as well, and you've got this other thing, and you might believe in something else, and all of these different things, like you could put them in a bowl, and that bowl might just say spirituality. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I remember when I was young, how I said I call myself spiritual, and even though I gave myself the label of spiritual, it was more a rejection of religion more than anything. It was kind of like, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. But for the longest time, I resisted so many of the kind of practices that you would do with spirituality, and anything to kind of go inwards. And I remember probably up until I was into my late 20s, I was very kind of I had a hard exterior, put it that way, right? Not that I was I wouldn't call myself a bad person or anything like that, but there was nothing that I'd cry for at all. You know, I was kind of like, I felt like I was very kind of put together, but the truth was I was holding a lot of stuff in. And the thing was with any kind of spiritual practice, you have to go in deeper and it kind of starts to unravel. And I remember, you know, around that time, you know, and I thought, oh, geez, what is this? You know, it felt weird to kind of be in my heart and kind of release all that stuff, all that gunk, and cry for the, you know, kind of first time properly, you know, like releasing all of the stuff that had been stuck for 20 odd years, you know, and I thought this is different, you know, and I felt different. And at first I did feel a little bit out of control. It was like, oh, I'm crying for nothing, you know, what's going on here? But you know, that's just a part of the process of kind of releasing and allowing that true part of yourself to come through. What I did realize looking back was that hard exterior and that kind of facade was really a mask for the whole world, you know, and for me to kind of, I was walking around like, you know, with a plate of armor on, you know, didn't want the world to see me, didn't want to feel anything, and just kind of went through things. But just doing some of the, I think one of the initial ones that I went in deep was with was Reiki, and that got me to a point where I could start to trust myself and trust my own guidance rather than trying to look for the answers outside of me. Because up until that point, I couldn't find the answers outside of me anyway. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, that looks all right. I'll do that, and it was not for me. I'll do that. It doesn't look like it's for me. But what I did realize was, you know, chasing all of these things externally wasn't really hitting the mark for me. And so I, as a side product, I guess, or byproduct of it, I really found out what was true for me, and without having to get other people involved, even I was getting to something that was inherently really truthful for me, what kind of path I wanted to go down, what I wanted my life to look like. Any problems that I was going through at the time, I could actually get to a point where it wasn't a problem. It was, I saw it as a problem, but you know, the things that were actually happening were things that needed to happen to get me to the place where I wanted to go. And so I think, you know, and you could go to someone else, you know, they're going to give you their opinion. But for me, it always comes back to the self, you know. I've had many different opinions and many people that have done readings as well. And that's where I was at that time and what they said. And so there was some truth in it. But I think when I really went into that true practice of going internally, it was kind of like there was another layer to it, you know. So what other people would see would be one aspect. And so there would be, just a real truth underneath that for me. But, you know, that's just my experience. But I would say that, you know, all the true answers lie within, whether that's through yourself or someone else accessing it for you. You know, that's the way to go. And so spiritual practice, or call it just, you know, taking a deep dive inside of yourself, you know, it's kind of like you want to get to that true heart of what matters and those answers to help you.
Yeah, that was the one thing that kick-started, I think, my journey into spirituality. And one of the things that I enjoy the most, and I still enjoy, is basically looking back and finding out the times when certain points in my life were at a crossroads, and I made a decision at the time, unsure of where it would lead, and thinking back and going, was that the right decision that was made? Like, how have I ended up as a result of that? And had I chose the other option, what my life could have been like then? And I realized that basically all of the choices that I was presented like drove me to where I am today. And I'm actually really happy where I am today. You know, there were times when I had big career decisions to make, big relationship decisions, and I won't lie, like occasionally, like quite rarely, I will think back on that and I'll go, well, what if I chose this other path, I'd be working here, and I might not have met my wife and had my kids, but like, would I have had more money, or would have I been more successful? And you know, you sometimes go down that path, but the decisions that have happened as a result led to another decision, led to another one, has brought me back to the present. You know, they always say that the present is the best place to be, and it is. Don't get me wrong, but it's good to know how you actually got there and the decisions that were made along that path that drove me to spirituality, that drove me to meet that person, that drove me to try this out. And it's that willingness to have a look back on those decisions and actually see the positives that became of those choices. Because sometimes those choices, you don't want to make them. Like, they're thrust upon you, and you're stuck with having to choose between two bad options. You know, and at that time, you might think, well, this is like, I'm going to be screwed either way, so I might as well just do this. And you might have that resentment for many years because that was the only decision that you made. And it's not until you either find some spirituality at some point, or there's some time past, that you can actually revisit that decision and go, you know what, that was actually the best thing that happened at the time. What I think with spirituality is that it, at least for me, is that it allows me to accept decisions that I've made, whether or not they seemed positive or not. It's almost, you know, getting back to what I said before about Australians, about it is what it is kind of thing. You know, like, spirituality is a form of that, in that, okay, the reason why this thing happened, and this thing could be a bad thing. You know, it could be like we were saying before, how I was in employment before, as opposed to being my own boss. There were decisions that were out of my control that were like, oh, okay, well, now I'm back to being a business owner again. At the time, I thought that might have been a pretty bad decision. Like, I didn't feel too good about it, but a little bit of time has passed, and I've looked inner as a result and gone, you know what? That's a really good choice. That actually, I didn't know that was an option, but it was presented as an option, and I've taken it, and it was like the best thing that I could have imagined. And during that time, I had to actually like look inner quite a lot, and just work through things, work through emotions, apply any sort of modality that was within my reach, my capabilities, to go, okay, I don't want to go insane. I don't want to get angry at anyone. I've just got to kind of contain this. And I was able to do that. And then in hindsight, look back and go, wow, like, that was a gift. It actually was. You know, it wasn't a small decision by any means. It was like something that, one, wasn't in my control, and two, wasn't even an option that I thought was available, and it just popped up. So, you know, the spiritual aspect of that for me allows me to deal with those emotions that might go unchecked. You know, there are people that have been angry for years, and there's no way for them to vent it out other than either violently, or they show it. You know, they show anger, they show grief, or they show, you know, they despise the world, sort of thing. And I think for me, spirituality helps calm those things down, helps me put things definitely into perspective. You know, especially when I said to you at the start how I'm a believer. You know, I don't need to know how things work. I believe that numerology works for me. I believe that Reiki works for me. I believe that crystals and tarot and all of that sort of stuff, it works for me. So I can just put my faith in that and know that, all right, this is what the decision has been made for me, or these are the options that I've been given. They both don't seem too good, but I know I'm going to pick one, and the one that I'm going to pick is going to be okay moving forward. So it's almost a way for me to handle bad situations or tough situations. You know, it's like for me, I almost think of it as a cheat code in a way. I do think of it as a superpower because I see people stressing out about certain situations that I've been through, and obviously it comes down to your own opinion and your own experiences. But I feel that I've handled my own setbacks better as a result of it. As a result of, things are going to work out because of A, B, and C. And that could be part of journaling, could be part of meditation, could be part of mindset stuff. Just all of these things that could be part of, spirituality, a form of healing per se. And it's made my life easier in a way. Life is never going to be easy, like as such, but some of those decisions can be then left to the universe, consciousness, numerology, anything, and I know that it'll be taken care of. It's a bit hard to kind of admit that to people that aren't in that sort of wavelength, but of the times that I've done that, I've kind of I've let things work out, and of all of the balls that we're juggling in life, ones that I know that spirituality can take care of, I'll let them drop because I know it's fine. And then I'll just juggle the rest that need to be worked out because, they're different sort of problems that I need to solve. And when those are solved, the ones that I've dropped to let spirituality handle, they've always come good. So, again, that's my belief. Other people are different. I'm not saying that it's going to work for everyone, but it is a case of trying it, seeing if it works for you. You can either drop it or you can try it again at a later stage because it might work for you at a later part of life. It's so common for guys like us at our age to find spirituality at this age because we've got, we've lived a particular part of life. We've seen a lot of things. We've done a lot of things. We've experienced a lot of stuff, and we do reach that point where it's like, hey, is that all there is? Is this it? And then we go looking and we try different things out and we research.
What do they say about the present or the present moment, that it's a gift? And I'm a real firm believer in that now. I probably wouldn't have been like 30 years ago because it always used to be about what's happened in the past, what's happening in the future, and I was never really present long enough to enjoy the moment. And because you mentioned that about kind of being present, and that came to mind about the present moment's a real gift, and you lose a lot of time when you look back to and where you were at that time and not being in the presence of, it could have been loved ones, could have been some sort of event, whatever it was, and your mind is somewhere else, and you're not enjoying the time that you have. It wasn't until I kind of really went deep into meditation, my meditation practice, and I was doing that for a time every day for a period of time. I've been meditating maybe about 30 years on and off, but there was a period of time where I did it, every single day, and that's where I went into a real deep realm, I guess. And while I was doing this, I realized that it brought me presence. You can't be in meditation and be in the future and in the past. Eventually, you come to a point where you're very present. That's the whole point of kind of with your meditation in the end. If you're very much in imagination or in the past, then the mind's taken over again. But you do come to a place where you're kind of present right here, right now. And you realize that there are no problems in the present moment, nothing. There might be bills to pay and, things going on that need to be done. But right now, all that's happening is I'm here, being present. And the reason I say that too is from that place, in my physical life, there might only be one of two choices that I can have, because I've done this, or this is my identity. These are the things that I've achieved. And going forward, I can only do these two things. But going into a place of meditation that opens up, it's unlimited. From that place of presence, you've got unlimited options. So whatever you've achieved up until this point, everything moving forward becomes a multitude of things that I can do and go from here. So those things that were problems, when you come into that present moment, it doesn't exist right now. And from that place, because you're not thinking about the problem, you've got a multitude of avenues that you can explore. Things that you probably wouldn't have thought about because you didn't really take the time, because you're stuck in the problem at the time. And I think, if nothing else, what spirituality has done for me is given me that time back where I can be more present with people, be more present with myself, be able to think more clearly, and walk in a way that is going to be very productive for me, if I choose to take that choice. But, prior to that, if I had just relied on history, if you like, the choices I've got in front of me are very limited, because it's only A, B, and C. And, but, coming from a place of unlimited resources really opens everything up for you.
I'll tell you, if there's at least one good thing about spirituality as it pertains to 2025, is I think that there's a lot more acceptance and awareness of it, at least in Australia, Western countries, that sort of stuff, where it's still, it lags a little bit behind, I feel. And the evidence that I see behind that is basically meditation. You were talking about meditation before, and I remember, like, years ago, decades ago, meditation was almost intrinsically linked. Big word. I hope that's right. Intrinsically linked to spirituality, in that meditation was actually seen as being spiritual in a way. And now what they've done is they've almost removed, not so much removed, but they've taken that aspect of spirituality, meditation, and they've now applied it to science, i.e. mental health. And that's, I think that's a good thing, and I think that when people start to do meditation and they start to have different experiences, because meditation isn't just meditation. There's so many different types of meditation.
Indeed.
And once it starts to hit for people, they start to experiment with other types. And then they go, wow, this is really cool. Like, what else can I do? Like, these retreats that I can do. Okay, now it's mindset, but then it gets beyond that. So I do see a bigger awareness of, or at least more awareness of spirituality through meditation. And, I know that in my kids' schools, they're using meditation to address mental health. And they're actually, there are periods in their school now where they focus on that, where they meditate. They're starting to teach kids this at a very young age. So from that point of view, it's awesome. And it's still, talking about meditation to guys is still a really foreign thing, I feel. I'll have a chat to my friends, and it's like, so, how's things? What did you get up to in the morning? It's like, oh, I got up at 4:30 and I meditated for 20 minutes. And I'm like, what? You meditated for 20 minutes? Like, that's really, it's a weird thing to think about and to even talk about. And I know that the retreats, you go for a meditation retreat, and it's usually groups of girls that are happy to do that. And I'm not saying that guys don't do that, but it's still, for every meditation retreat for every say 100 for girls or 50, there's like one for guys, because it's still a very
Yeah.
strange thing,
Yeah.
to do that, even though, you and I, we do it every day. It's something that more guys are starting to do. They're starting to feel the benefits of. And again, it gets back to something that guys can do on their own without having to tell anybody. And if it works for them, if it helps them kickstart their day, great. Let them do it. It's a perfect thing for guys. Like, spirituality is like a superpower for guys because it's all internal. You don't have to tell anyone about it, but you get all the benefits of it. You know what I mean? You get all the benefits of a clear mindset, of reduced anger, of being able to, control your emotions around things. And, by controlling your emotions, I don't mean like not crying, but I'm talking about dealing with them, dealing with heartache, dealing with disappointment. You can somehow work through it with spirituality. So I do enjoy hearing that people are more into meditation. It's sort of, it's crept up in the corporate space. I think the past couple of decades, they're starting to realize that mental health is a real thing, not with just guys, but with everyone. But I think it is a little bit more prevalent in guys than girls. I could just be making figures up, but I think that girls naturally have the ability to talk to each other in a particular way, and so if there's any issues around that kind of stuff, they're able to, they'll talk to their friends. Whereas guys generally, like, one, it's not a thing that we as guys generally talk about, and two, it's really not in our nature to say, hey, Shane, I need to talk to you about something, like, I'm feeling this kind of way, what do you think? So to see that it's creeping up into corporate, where there's managers and CEOs and bosses and all of this sort of stuff, I think is a great thing, because beyond that, I think it could just mean that if meditation works, well, what else is this thing that is originally from spirituality? Like, what else is there that could help me? Is it a crystal thing? Is it Reiki? Is it some kind of other energy healing? Is it breath work? And it all comes back to spirituality at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's magnificent to hear that, actually, what you said about your kids, that they're teaching meditation at school. I mean, that blows my mind, and I'm so happy to hear that. I can say from, my point of view, I'm very much an introverted person, and, love to get, or I do get energy from kind of being by myself. One of the things with meditation as well is it meant I didn't need to talk about my problems that much with other people, and I think guys, because they like to keep to themselves as well, this is kind of like the perfect remedy, because if you know how to do it properly, and there's no real properly, but there is a point where you get to be really at peace, and be able to kind of decipher these thoughts without being troubled by them. And so when you get to that place, you may still want to talk to other people. It doesn't mean you don't have to. But the thing is, when you do a meditation practice and it's early in the morning, it's just like if you were someone that wanted to or needed to exercise, you're going to warm up, and this is preparing your mind for the day ahead. Just getting out of bed and then going to your day. And you got to realize too, the night before, while you're asleep, your brain is still active. It's that unconscious part of your mind is still active, and it's probably downloading a whole bunch of rubbish that happened from the day before. And so before you start your day, you want to clean that up and kind of get yourself on the right foot. And meditating or introspecting, what other words can we use to kind of make it cool? So guys will do it.
Yeah.
But it's really just setting it up. So you start your day off right, there's, it just becomes a practice just like anything else. You wouldn't think of leaving the house without brushing your teeth, So clean up your mind before you go, and you're good.
Yeah.
I used to meditate first thing in the morning, but I'd also during my lunch I'd have a short meditation, and sometimes if something triggered during the day, I would remember straight away what it felt like when I was in my meditation, that kind of peace that happened, and the thoughts that were happening at that time that got me to that kind of place of peace. And so that would be just a reminder during the day to kind of, I'm having these mini meditations that might take 10 seconds, but it's just a reminder. And so the more you do this, um, it's like a muscle, it develops, and then you don't have to do that during the day.
Yeah.
But at the start you might do it just as a reminder as you go on. But
I tried that. I tried doing it at lunchtime, and it was okay. It was at I had to do it in my car in a car park,
Yeah.
and I think the first couple of times was okay. I couldn't actually zone out. It was it's like me when I fly and I try and sleep. Like I can't. I think I'm sleeping, but I'm still aware that I'm in a plane. So it's never 100% pure sleep.
Yeah.
So I'm in the car. Like I'm in a car in a underground car park, and I'm trying to zone out, and I'm still aware that I'm in a car park, and there's probably cars back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
But I of the times that I kind of got into it, it was good. It was kind of like that siesta as well, but then allowing anything that had come up during the course of the day, especially if the morning was pretty hectic or there were some decisions that needed to be made and I wasn't sort of clear on it. It did allow me to sort of bring things back to Zen and then work from that place rather than just always having that anxiety throughout lunch and then going, oh, wow, it's like 5 minutes till we have to go back to work. And I'm still at that heightened, at that peak level of I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
So it is, it is something that helps me. But I think you're right as well. We kind of need to give it another name. Hey, meditation is
we'll rebrand that one.
yeah, because you say that to guys and they make that hom. They make it a joke, and it's like, hey, like don't knock it, man. Come on,
Don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, I know, and
especially if you've got that troubled mind going on.
And I in my head, I'm recalling this ad on TV. And it's either an ad on TV or I'm just putting it together in my head, but it was like a bunch of really like tough Aussie guys. I think they might have been truck drivers and they were dressed in like shorts and stuff and they're like all scruffy. And then they were meditating. It was just such a weird sight. And like I said, I don't know if it was an ad or if it was, I'm actually just picturing it in my head, but it actually worked. It was like, even that thought in my head is weird. Like I meditate every day, and I know you do too. So the thought of me imagining you doing that is not foreign at all. But a bloke's bloke, a rough guy, sitting down, cross-legged, and just, like focusing on something, like is still a little bit odd to me. But I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure they do it, and I'm sure they reap the benefits of it because
It conjured up a memory, actually, when you were talking about a commercial. I remember there was two guys, and this guy goes out onto the grass to meditate, and he puts the music on, and it's some metal thing that he's listening to. And I thought, that's a meditation I like. But
if it helps.
Yeah.
All right, Shane, we've ticked over the hour. It goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah,
any tips for guys and spirituality?
Look into it.
Yeah.
I'd say, don't knock it just because of the label of spirituality or meditation or whatever it is. I think, I found a lot of benefits. Even, like I said, I call myself spiritual, and that was trying to hide from a religion or run from religion. But there's a true sense and kind of a lot of diamonds that you get from spirituality, regardless of what you call it. It's the practice of doing this, and I really did it because of that troubled mind, and I could not stop that with anything. Didn't matter who I spoke to, and when I got into meditation in a deep sense and made it a daily practice, that disappeared. It just went, and it's about you being in control of the mind rather than it controlling you.
Yeah, I agree. Any guys out there that are thinking about it, just do it. Like it really is a. It is a. I don't even know what you would class spirituality as. It's a belief. Is it a belief? I guess it's a belief. Well, it's a belief. It's a belief that is actually that's for guys. I believe now that after talking to you about it for over an hour, that spirituality is for guys.
It's for guys
because it's something that you can practice on your own whenever you want, not tell anyone about it, but have all of the results. And you could do this for years and years and years, and people are like, what are you so happy about? So, nothing. You don't have to tell them. You can if you want, but it's once you have your own practice. And it's not just meditation. It could be meditation and something else. It might not even be meditation. It might be something, it might be journaling. It might be, it could be Reiki. It could be some sort of energy healing. But once you find what works for you, you don't have to tell anyone about it. You can just use it for your own selfish self and help yourself out, which then in turn will help other people because, you're a better you.
Absolutely.
So Shane, where can people get in touch if they want to reach out to you?
Oh, awaken.guide is my new website. So details will be there.
Perfect. For people that want to know more about the Grit and Guidance show, you can go to followus.gritandguidance.com. And for me, you can go to dex.thedecafnetwork.com or shoot me an email at dex@thedecafnetwork.com. Thank you very much, Shane. I will chat to you very soon.
Great.
See you guys.
Take care,
Bye.
Dex. Bye.